Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something really fascinating and, well, deeply personal.
Mhm.
One of you actually shared this document with us. It's got a strange title, FGS HGF FGF.
Right.
And it maps out this incredible, 20-year journey, someone trying really hard to understand and, I guess, solve what they see as a super important but often misunderstood mitzvah.
Absolutely. And what jumped out at me straight away is how incredibly personal this account is. It's not, some stuffy academic paper.
No, definitely not.
It feels quite raw. It's one person's firsthand deep dive, really.
Mhm.
And they make this pretty bold claim, don't they? Discovering a kind of holy grail for well-being.
Yeah, related to health, power, happiness, all linked back to this specific mitzvah.
But they're very clear. It wasn't easy. This understanding was really hard won. Took a long, long time.
Right. And it seems like their main role now is maybe helping other people who are stuck in a similar place,
Hmm.
like sharing what took them 2 decades to figure out, maybe as a shortcut for others.
That seems to be the intention.
Yeah.
Offering up their insights.
And they kind of dangle this hook, too, saying if you stick with the story, the ending might actually be quite surprising.
Yeah, especially given where it all started.
Okay, so let's dig into that beginning. What was the spark, the initial drive behind this massive commitment?
Well, the author talks about having this really intense interest from like a very young age, a persistent need to find a solution for this specific issue.
But others didn't see it that way.
Apparently not. It's interesting they say people around them kind of dismissed it, called it a trivial obsession.
Wow. You can really feel that frustration coming through, can't you?
Yeah.
Thinking something is so vital personally for years and years and just having people wave it away.
It really shows how deep this ran for them. They even mention it causing, real suffering and frustration because there just weren't easy answers out there.
So it wasn't just intellectual curiosity then.
Oh, definitely not. It seems deeply tied to their own well-being. And this intense internal pressure seems to have fueled a lot of innovation.
How so?
They talk about trying an infinity of methods. That phrase really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It really does. Like just throwing everything at it.
Exactly. A really creative, maybe even slightly obsessive approach to finding an answer.
And it wasn't just thinking about it, right? They actually made things.
Yeah, that's right. They mentioned creating loads of tangible stuff, products, inventions, even things they call artifacts. You picture someone just constantly tinkering, building, experimenting.
Wow. But people outside weren't convinced. There was skepticism.
Seems so. Despite all this effort, this hands-on work, people around them were still questioning it, doubting the focus.
Yet they kept going.
Absolutely. That's a key point. Facing the doubt, facing, lots of failures, which they're honest about, their determination just didn't seem to waver.
What kept them going, do you think?
Well, partly, it seems they were utterly convinced this wasn't just their problem. They felt it was actually a widespread issue.
Ah, okay, so that adds another dimension.
Right. It wasn't just for them anymore. It was about finding something that could potentially help lots of other people, too.
Mm.
That's a powerful motivator.
So after all this time, all this effort, they start seeing some progress, a breakthrough.
Yeah, it sounds like ideas started to, coalesce. Things started coming together, leading to prototypes.
Okay.
And significantly, at the time they wrote this account, they felt the problem was, in their words, practically solved.
Practically solved after 20 years.
Exactly. They even mentioned waiting on components for the kind of final implementation.
Wow.
And what really lands the impact, I think, is when they say this whole project, this solution, was the most difficult and costly project of their entire life.
That really puts the 20 years into perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Shows the sheer scale of what they felt they were tackling.
But getting to that point, it wasn't smooth sailing, was it? They mention obstacles.
Oh, definitely. Lots of hurdles. They talk about numerous setbacks, challenges all along those 2 decades.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, they don't detail every single one, but there's this almost palpable sense they describe, like an opposing force was actively working against them.
An opposing force, really?
Yeah, feeling that, anything that could go wrong did go wrong. It sounds quite intense.
But they didn't quit.
No. That adversity just seemed to, strengthen their resolve. They refused to give up, pushed forward by this deep inner feeling that this had to be done. It was important.
That's quite a mindset. Almost like the difficulty itself proved it was worthwhile.
Maybe, yeah. And the author kind of interprets that resistance, that constant opposition, as a sign
It's a sign of what?
that if a solution was found, it would be purely down to their own effort, their perseverance against the odds.
Like the universe was testing them, almost.
Perhaps that's how it felt. It certainly highlights the immense personal stake they had in it.
Mm.
And it's important how they frame the discovery itself.
Right. They're quite specific about where it came from, aren't they?
Very. They state clearly this wasn't the result of, like, sitting in a library or running formal experiments in a lab, or even just a sudden flash of genius initially.
So not traditional research.
Not in the academic sense, no. Although they do say creativity became crucial later in refining the actual techniques.
But the core breakthrough came from somewhere else.
Exactly. They emphasize it emerged from the pain of their own long struggle. That lived experience was the key.
And it wasn't the first thing they tried that worked?
Not at all. They stressed that only the very, very last technique they developed actually proved effective. This was after trying loads of other things, some apparently quite complex, cumbersome even, that just didn't cut it.
Okay, so after this epic journey, they finally land on something that works. And they make some pretty big claims about what it can do, right?
Oh, definitely. Some very significant claims. They use phrases like, it has the potential to change the world and change the lives of many people. Pretty strong stuff.
Wow. Okay, like what benefits are they talking about?
It's quite a list. Needing less sleep,
Hmm.
eating less food, feeling less tired, having more energy.
Okay, general well-being stuff.
Yeah, and more. Rejuvenation,
Yeah.
becoming more attractive, feeling happier, higher self-esteem. They even suggest it could be a remedy against depression, sadness, loneliness.
That's a huge range of effects.
It is, though they do add a caveat, saying more research is needed to fully get how it all works.
Fair enough. That's responsible. But still, those are extraordinary claims from one person's experience, and then there's that comparison they make.
Oh, yes, that one.
Yeah.
It's certainly provocative.
What do they say?
They suggest this method could potentially elevate men to the level of women in quite a few aspects.
Okay.
Well, quickly adding that obviously individuals vary, but is presented as a kind of general observation about perceived strengths.
Right. That's definitely a statement that could spark some debate.
Indeed.
But moving on to how this invention, is actually used. They talk about different applications.
Yes, several levels or ways to use it. And what's really central for the author, it seems, is its relevance for Jewish individuals.
How so?
Specifically for observing this particular mitzvah from the Torah. They are very clear that for them, this application alone makes the whole 20-year struggle worthwhile just for that group of people.
That's a powerful statement of purpose. So even setting aside the broader health claims, they see a core value there.
Precisely. A direct application within a specific religious context. But they do mention other potential uses too.
Like what?
Things like gaining and conserving energy more generally, improving relationships, making couples happier, more satisfied, maybe making relationships last longer.
Interesting.
And they even hint at more advanced stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like healing illnesses or strengthening parts of the body, though they don't really flesh those out much.
Deep.
Objectives, they say.
And they seem to think their invention is pretty crucial for that primary religious observance.
Oh, absolutely. They make a really strong claim there. They basically say that for most people, it's almost impossible to properly observe this mitzvah without their invention.
Almost impossible. Wow.
Yeah. It really highlights how transformative they believe their solution is, at least within that specific framework.
Okay, so we've talked about the journey, the claims, the applications. But what is this solution? After all that, the big reveal is it's technology.
That's the twist, isn't it? After exploring who knows what chemical, physical, natural methods, maybe stranger things, the thing that finally worked is technological.
Like a device.
Exactly. An apparatus. They say it's not super complex, but it involves hardware and some internal software.
Huh. And they put a lot of thought into making it robust.
Seems so. They mentioned choosing more expensive components deliberately.
Yeah.
To make sure it's resistant, durable, reliable, built to last and work consistently.
Makes sense if it took 20 years to get right.
Right. But they're also realistic. They say the current version is a functional prototype. It works, but it needs more work, especially on the outside, the design, before it could be, say, commercialized.
And this wasn't the first physical version they built?
No, they mentioned earlier ones, more basic prototypes, some even made of wood.
Wood? Really?
Yeah, sounds very rudimentary. But those were the steps, the necessary iterations that eventually led to the one that actually worked properly and sustainably. The earlier ones either didn't work long-term or just didn't work at all.
It really underlines that invention is often a messy, iterative process.
Absolutely. Lots of dead ends before the breakthrough.
And did they find any sort of external validation along the way? Anything that kept them believing?
Yes, actually. They mentioned something specific. Watching videos of a particular Kabbalist.
Oh, interesting.
And this Kabbalist apparently really stressed how incredibly important this exact issue was and how solving it could, improve the world.
So that must have felt like a huge confirmation.
It seems like it. It reinforced what the author had believed so strongly for so long. Like, see? I'm not crazy. This really is important.
A bit of wind in their sails after all that struggle.
Exactly. Gave them extra fuel, perhaps.
So now they have this working prototype. What's next for them?
Well, the document indicates they plan to seek advice
Advice on what?
on how best to actually implement this, how to distribute the invention. So moving towards the practical side of getting it out there.
It really is just an incredible story, isn't it? 20 years, that level of dedication.
Unwavering.
All driven by this deep personal conviction about a specific mitzvah holding some kind of key to, well, everything almost.
It's quite something. And that central claim, discovering this powerful method tied to the mitzvah with all these potential benefits, it's a compelling story, even if it is, quite extraordinary.
And it's really important for you, listening, to keep in mind the nature of this source. It's intensely personal, unconventional. These are one person's experiences, their claims. There's no external scientific validation presented here.
Absolutely. It's an account of a personal quest, not a research paper. Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you to ponder.
Go on.
Well, given the sheer personal investment here, the decades of struggle, and then the surprising outcome of this technological device.
Yeah.
What fundamental human needs, what deep desires might this whole thing, the misunderstood mitzvah and its tech solution, actually be tapping into? Is there maybe some kind of unexpected link between these ancient religious practices and our very modern search for well-being through technology? Something maybe worth thinking about on your own?